Hey everybody, welcome back again to Ken Tamplin Vocal Academy, where the proof is in the singing. I'm doing this really awesome series where I'm taking the most epic, legendary pieces of music in all of pop and rock history, and I'm getting the isolated vocal tracks, and I'm doing an analysis, a tutorial for singing, and I'm also breaking down the recording process. So next up is Sammy Hagar. The band is Montrose, and the song is called Rock Candy. Now, many of you don't know who this is, that's fine. But for those of you that think of Sammy Hagar with his solo stuff, or also, of course, with Van Halen, he's also my cousin, yes. But he was in a band before that called Montrose. In fact, that was one of my all-time favorite albums, was their first Montrose album. And there were several songs, Rock the Nation, Rock Candy, Bad Motor Scooter, just an incredible album. But I'm going to focus on Rock Candy. But before we get started, if you wouldn't mind, please like and subscribe to my channel. That would be awesome. I also have a singing course called How to Sing Better Than Anyone Else. You can find it right here at kentamplinvocalacademy.com, where I also have a free singing forum for you guys wanting to learn how to sing. We talk and negotiate all this different stuff of all these other amazing singers in hopes to help make you great at singing. Okay? Now, before we get started too far, I kind of always remember this song bigger than it really is. Now, let me explain. A lot of times we think of something, man, remember that guitar? That guitar was so huge on, like Van Halen's an example where the guitar, we thought of it being big and we listened back and it still was really big, right? And then other songs we go back and we listen and we say, God, I kind of remember that song being bigger than that. It seems kind of like it's through a box or something. They're pretty small. And then it's everything in between. But, we think of vocal sounds being really big. And you go back and you listen to a Bon Jovi record or you listen to a Def Leppard album, you go, man, yeah, the vocals were really big, right? But in this case, this was even before that. This is really early, this is some 70s stuff. And I want to play this first with just the whole band with all of the parts in, and then I'm going to talk about Sammy's vocal through the process. And then for you guys that want to hang out towards the end, I have a fun little engineering thing that I've done to some of the music to kind of make it sound like how I remembered it. And maybe I kind of went overboard, but it'll still be fun for you audiophile engineer guys out there. So with that said, let's get started. I'm going to go ahead and just play it. Let's do it. Here we go. Okay, so you guys probably remember that song, and it kind of reminds me too, like early Whitesnake, Slide It In, all those bands that were coming up with this really great groove rock stuff. Coming up is Sammy's epic scream. We're going to hear that in a minute, and we're going to play it and do it. Here we go. Okay, so we're gonna start there. Now I'm gonna go ahead and mute everything except the vocals, lead vocal that is. So here we go. We're gonna listen to the scream by itself as he comes in. Check it out. Okay, now I remember that scream being really big, and it's still really cool and really big. But for some reason, I just remember it like owning planet Earth. You go, there's a roaring lion, and it's cool, but it's interesting because when you listen to the early Montrose stuff, and I really, really, really challenge you guys. In fact, I'll put Rock Candy, I'll put Bad Motor Scooter, and I'll put Rock the Nation, the original versions. I'll put that in the description so you guys can hear this. But I want you to go back and listen to some of this stuff, because Sammy's voice, for all of you out there that say, oh, my range is only this, I can never go beyond that, blah, blah, blah. This was at the top of Sammy's range back then. He was younger, in his 20s, early 20s, but he got a lot more range, not just in songs like, I Can't Drive 55 and whatnot, where he's hitting some B's and C's and stuff, but also in Van Halen, there's a higher and higher, straight up we'll climb higher. And he goes way up in the register. So he got a lot of range later, and even later in his career. So he definitely grew his voice later on. So let's continue. We're going to move this up here, and we're going to go on from here. Here we go.
When you need a friend through thick and thin, Don't look to those above you.
Okay, now I want to stop this here and when you need a friend through thick and thin, don't look to those above you, right? Now, if you really listen, my voice is a little more girthy because I'm older too. He's in his 20s, so it's a little smaller sound. But it's really interesting to hear the isolated vocal version of that because his vibrato is really fast. It's not like super rock solid. It's more just rock and roll. You know what I mean? So let's play it again. Check it out.
When you need a friend through thick and thin, don't look to those above you. When you're down and out, ain't no doubt.
By the way, down and out ain't no doubt. He's flat on that note. Now again, the music covers up a multitude of sin. I don't think he was going after perfection. I think he was going after sass. I think he was going after vibe. I think he was going after, kind of flaunting, strutting around with a vocal because that's kind of the way the band makes you feel as you're listening to it. And then I was interesting how the engineer on this chose really short room sounds. There's no big reverbs, big room sounds, but it's only short, just like tile room and wood room kind of sounds. So the sound itself is in these big echoey arena reverb sounds. They're pretty small, but in the mix it works amazing. And I'll go back and play. In fact, let me just do this now. Let me go back and play this so you can hear what this sounds like in the mix itself with the whole band, because I think it's really interesting to kind of get the vibe of this. Listen.
When you need a friend through thick and thin, don't look to those above you. When you're down and out, ain't no doubt. Nobody wants you.
Okay, so you can kind of hear, the band really, really helps push it along to give it that big, fat kind of sound. And it's interesting, the placement of the reverbs, especially the guitar, makes the guitar sound a lot bigger than it really is. Let me show you what I mean for you guitar guys out there. I want to back this up one more time because I think it's really important that you go, wow, I never really knew that. So I'm going to go to the top and I'm only going to play the guitar. I know I'm supposed to be talking about vocals right now. I'm a guitar player. That was my first instrument. So this was a very inspirational guitar or song for me on guitar. So I'm only going to play the guitar. I'm going to mute the vocals and I want you to hear how small the guitar actually is. Check this out. Now let's add the band because you see how much bigger it is. Right? So when the band kicks in, it makes the guitar sound bigger than it really is. The guitar's kind of small from what I remembered. I remember just the, right? And you guys that remember this, you have to be kind of old to remember the song. But anyway, so let's move forward again, back to the vocals. And I want to go through and I want to talk about the way Sammy compresses his sound. And that's really important. So let's bring the vocal back in. Check it out. Here we go.
But you're rock candy, baby. Your heart sweet and sticky.
Now, he's got some really great control of his distortion, and he's using glottal compression. Because you're a candy baby, your heart sweet and sticky. Now, let me for giggles, I want to put the kind of reverbs. I set a couple of these up real quick, so we could go over here, and he's got like a little bit of this and a little bit of that. So here we go. Let me do this again. Because you're a candy baby, your heart sweet and sticky. Right. Now, I'll pull this out here. I'm using kind of a little bit more like of a Dio approach. You're a candy baby. He's smaller on the sound, and like I said, I'm a little more girthy on the sound. But that's kind of pretty much, the sound. And if you put it in the band, maybe I'll sing to it in a minute. In fact, what the heck? Let me try this here. It's I'm gonna take Sammy out. I'm gonna be Sammy for a minute. This is all impromptu stuff, guys. I'm ad-libbing all this stuff because I just have fun with this stuff. I listen to it and go, wow, that's cool. Well, that's cool. Oh man, check that out, right? So I'm gonna put the band back in, and here we go. And I'll sing along. Here we go. Whoops. Let's go to right here. All right. Okay, I'm gonna get it a little farther here. Here's Sammy first.
When you need a friend through thick and thin,
Okay, now I'm going to take that out. I'm going to put some of those reverbs back up. And I'm going to sing it myself. Here we go. When you need a friend through thick and thin, don't look to those above you. Okay, above you, right? So that's basically, cause down and out, and it ain't no doubt. If it can be done, baby, you can do it. Cause you're a candy baby, right? And he's got a really, really throaty, compressed sound. It's not the safest sound, guys, for what I teach in my course. I want you guys to have a lot of diaphragmatic support here. Try it clean first. When you need a friend, right? You start clean first, and then you lean into the sound by keeping and maintaining good open throat technique. Now, I cover all that in my singing course. And sorry, that was a lot of reverb when I said that. Go, 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 go. At least room reverb. So anyway, so let's go back to this here. We're going to go to Sammy. We're going to continue on here. And here we go.
Out and out, ain't no doubt. Nobody wants you, but you're a candy baby.
Now, on some of these isolated vocal tracks, I get them as I get them, and I don't throw a fit. There's an old saying, you get what you get, and you don't throw a fit. I'm just trying to pick the cleanest tracks I can find, and in this case, sometimes they'll have a guitar come in out of nowhere, some weird thing. And that's the nature of some of these extraction things where it couldn't eliminate everything, but at least the vocal's really clean and very pure to what the original track sounded like. So ignore the guitar for a minute, and we're gonna listen to Sam's vocal. Here we go.
Your heart sweet and sticky. Yes! Now you're a candy baby.
Try to do this with me, guys. Just, you're a candy baby. Just kind of come in there with me. Start clean. You're a candy baby. And don't add a lot of distortion, and you can add a little more. You're a candy baby. You can add a little bit more, and then a little bit more. You're a candy baby. And little by, a little more at a time, and then you can kind of build up to this sound. So let's continue.
Hot, sweet, and sticky. Oh, yes.
Okay, now, before we go on, the other thing that was interesting, kind of like Van Halen, but Van Halen did have some background vocals, is on all of this stuff, or the early Montrose album, from what I remember, and there might be some exception, it's just a three-piece band. Three-piece. Drums, bass, guitar. That's it. Sammy did mostly vocals, though he does play guitar well, and he did play some live, but for the most part, this is just a three-piece, no background vocals, just a lead vocal out front. Folks, it's really hard to get that to sound good, just a three-piece band with a single vocal. And there are bands, Triumph, there's a three-piece band. I can go through Rush, a lot of bands that have done it, but for the most part, it's really hard to get a good three-piece band with not a bunch of production, bunch of delays, vocals flying in and out to maintain the sass and the energy that's going on in this track like this. So we're gonna go back, we're gonna listen to more, here we go. That's on the lead vocal track, sorry.
Hot, sweet, and yeah.
Yeah. Okay, let's go to the next verse. Here we go. Whoops, a little too far.
When you're 17, reaching for your dreams.
Now, come on, guys. Let's be honest with ourselves. That vocal sounds a little shaky to me. Now, it's not that Sam isn't the man. He's one of the greatest rock singers of all time. But he was going more after vibe, and I assumed that they probably were in a room and they were doing a lot of this live because it has a very live feel to it, that he just was in the music, and it didn't matter about a funky vibrato or being unstable in his vocals. It was more about the vibe, and there's a lot to be said with it. So here I am, Ken Tamplin Vocal Academy, teaching you guys how to sing perfect or as best as we can, whatever that means. Sing with good technique so you can increase your palate for singing, and then I'm exalting this stuff and I'm eulogizing this stuff. I'm just doing it because it's just awesome, right? And so I have no problem doing that because we should start first with that kind of awesomeness and then find a way to protect it and find a way to advance that. But I want to point that out here as we're going through this. So listen to it again. It's pretty unstable. Little weird vibratos, pitchy stuff. Check it out.
Hot, sweet, and
That was cool. And this is cool.
yeah.
Okay, but here we're going to go up to the verse a little bit right here. Check this out.
When you're 17, reaching for your dreams.
Yeah. Reaching for your dreams, right? He's kind of off there, right? Reaching for your dreams. You know, it's kind of more like a Paul Rodgers-y sort of approach, but he's not doing that. He's just letting it hang out, man. He's wearing it out on his sleeve.
Reaching for your dreams. But don't let no one reach it for you. Pull up your pants. Stretch out, take a chance. If it can be done, well, you can do it. 'Cause you're rock candy, baby.
Okay. Now, again, if you notice too, he's not singing with a lot of range. And the stuff that he's singing right now is that, 'cause you're a candy baby. It's not that high. It's like well within his tessitura, which is the sweet spot of his range. And the note choices are not like even in an octave. They're like 4 or 5 notes back and forth. So it's all just kind of hitting right at the top of his range. He goes up a little, comes down a little, but there's not a lot of big melodic value. Again, it's about swag. It's about sass. It's about, you know, strutting in and the music being very strut-like. Let's continue. Here we go.
You're hot, sweet, and sticky. Yes, you are. You're rock candy, baby.
Rock candy, baby! I had to do that.
So hot, sweet, and sticky. Yes.
Okay, and then it goes into a big long instrumental break. Let me run this up to where the vocal comes back in again because there's a big long solo. And then you audiophile guys there, you engineers out there, stay with me because you're gonna like what I'm about to show you. It's pretty fun. Check it out. Hold on. Here's the next one.
Hey, baby. Oh, yeah. Hot, sweet.
Did you hear that mistake on guitar? Ronnie Montrose? Check it out, guys. Listen to this.
Hot, sweet.
Right here. He's supposed to da-da-da-da-da. He's missing a note, right? So chances are this was live. I don't know. I'd have to call Sam and ask him, though he probably wouldn't take my call. I don't know. I don't know if he would or not. But anyway, kind of interesting because I was listening through the whole guitar track, and I don't want to take all the time to do that now. And I'm going, I just remember this being a lot more technical, a lot more like Eddie Van Halen, a lot, more tight, and it's pretty loose and just, Now, I've seen Ronnie. In fact, I sang with Ronnie at the House of Blues quite a while back with Jimmy Paxton on drums. Eduardo Roth was on keys, and I wound up singing a few of these songs. And he was very technical. I mean, oh my gosh, like he killed it. Just amazing. So it's interesting to hear this when I've heard Ronnie do other stuff that was just, off the charts great. So, and by the way, he just has some of the most amazing riff rocky kind of stuff for me as a guitar player that I happen to like from this era. So let's continue. In fact, I think that's pretty much the end because there's a big scream at the end. I'll do it. I'll play it. Here we go. Here we go. Sticky! Sticky! Right? Okay, now, I want to go back, as promised. I want to go through and show you guys what I remembered. Like, I remember the song being really big, right? And so I'm going to play just the track alone with everything in its original form. And then I'm going to show you some of the cheese that I put on some of this stuff. And again, I only had a stereo drum track to work with and a stereo guitar track. I didn't get a chance to isolate any drum sounds or anything. Had I had that, I could have done a lot more with the track. And this is just a real quick thing that I did to it. But I added some various room sounds and I spread the guitars in different ways and whatnot. I didn't re-record anything. All I'm going to do is put effects on the track, okay? So we're going to start with no effects at all, and it's going to go like this. Here's the original right here. Here we go. Sorry. Okay, now here's gonna be my effects. Now hang in there because I'm gonna go both do with and without. So here's my effects. Okay, without effects. That's without.
When you need a friend.
All right, I'm gonna put them in. You guys ready? There we go.
Don't look to those above you. When you're down and out, ain't no doubt. Nobody wants you, but you're rock candy, baby. Your heart's sweet and sticky.
Without. With.
Hot, sweet,
Without.
when you're 17, reaching for your dreams.
One more time, putting it in. Here we go.
Don't let no one reach it for you. Pull up your pants, stretch out, take a chance. If it can be done, well you can do it. 'Cause you're rock candy, baby.
Anyway, I just love doing stuff like that so you guys can see what can be done. I have a lot more of these heading your way, so definitely stick around. Please don't forget to like and subscribe to my channel. That would be super awesome. Sammy Hagar, Montrose, you got to see from the beginning of his career towards, or only the beginning of his career, but I'm going to be doing some Van Halen stuff as well, so you get to see that era of Sammy as well as Sammy in the I Can't Drive 55 era. So definitely check out my next video.